At the beginning of every snooker season, I always select 5 different elements of my technique that I believe are holding me back, and of course, that I want to improve. And this year, I'm absolutely confident that the first thing I need to do is improve my aiming process. Because I've noticed whenever I miss an angled shot, often I'll miss it too thick. So I haven't cut the ball enough. And I think this is because of the way I line the shot up in the first place. Here's how it works. The first thing you need to know is where the cue ball has to strike the object ball. A good way of thinking about this is to imagine the cue ball being directly behind the object ball in line with the pocket. You then simply aim your cue through the centre of the cue ball's current position onto the centre of where you want the cue ball to be. And if you push your cue through in a straight line, then you should definitely pot the ball. But it's exactly this that I'm having problems with, and there's a good reason for that. I think what happens on difficult shots when I really want to get the angle right is I can end up willing the red to go to the right, but end up pushing the white to the right and straightening the shot up. So instead of pushing the cue through to where I'm aiming, my desperation to cut the red at the right angle is causing me to hit the cue ball towards the right, which of course is going to have the opposite effect to cutting the red, and this is going to cause me to straighten up the shot more often than not. My solution to this problem is to watch the cue ball after it struck the object ball and ignore the object ball entirely. This means I'm going to get everything lined up correctly and make sure I'm hitting the object ball in the right place. But as soon as the cue ball strikes the object ball, all my focus is going to go onto the cue ball. And this means just before I play the shot, I'm not going to get worried I'm getting the angle wrong and change it. And this could have other benefits on focusing on positional play as well. Because if watching the object ball isn't helping me, then focusing on position can only be a good thing. So that's my first goal for the season, watching where the cue ball goes rather than the object ball. However, my second goal for the season involves a problem I've been having with my cue action. Occasionally I don't push my cue through far enough. You see that stopped there, and it shouldn't have stopped till it got at least there. And that can mean I don't get enough power or spin on the cue ball, and sometimes when it stops abruptly, it can cause me to miss the shot. Remembering that with some slow touch control shots and other close proximity shots like this one, that sometimes a short snatchy delivery isn't necessarily a bad thing, with the majority of shots you want to make sure you're pushing your cue through all the way. Because if your cue hand ends up in exactly the same position every single time, here, then that makes your delivery a lot more predictable. And a predictable cue action makes your game a lot more consistent, because it's easier to understand exactly where you're aiming and how the shot will play out when you're doing exactly the same thing every single time. So my second goal is to get my hand in the correct position after I finish the shot as often as I possibly can. The third thing is something I've always struggled with, and I think it's held me back quite a bit, and that's keeping my bridge hand still as I play the shot. What I believe is happening is I realise I'm not quite in the right position to pot the ball, and my hand moves in order to try and correct the shot. I realise this is incredibly simplistic, but it's something I've always struggled with, which is why I usually find it easier to pot balls off the cushions than I do with my hand on the table, and it's something that I desperately need to work out and get right. Even if this means I miss some shots that I probably shouldn't for a little while, I want to make sure my bridge hand stays completely still, because I know in the future, once I get everything lined up perfectly, it'll really start to help. And getting everything lined up straight is exactly what the next thing is all about. Often when I get to the table, my cue doesn't just drop in line with the shot, and this can cause me to miss in a number of different ways. All of these will be because I'm not pointing my cue to where I'm aiming on the object ball, which might cause me to hit the shot in the wrong direction, or cause me to strike the cue ball with side spin, which is obviously going to throw it offline as well. So what can I do to make sure I find myself on the shot with my cue pointing in the right direction? To make sure I get this right, the moment I get to the table, I'm going to try and make sure that I'm striking the cue ball exactly in the center, and my cue is going to be aiming in a straight line towards the point I'm aiming on the object ball, just as I showed earlier. And if I get this right, this should heavily increase my odds of hitting the shot straight and potting the ball. This means my goal is to walk into the shot with my cue online and then to solely look at the cue ball when I get to the table and work out whether or not I'm striking it in the center, and then and only then to look up to the object ball and see if my cue is being pushed in the right direction to where I'm aiming. I think it is, and I was right. Before the next one, let's just find Mario, who's in Recklinghausen, Germany, which is about there. Finally, the angle of your wrist makes a big difference to the way you deliver the cue and your chances of potting a ball. Now, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way to hold the cue like this, but I just want to keep it in a position that's consistent. As I was explaining with the cue action earlier, the more you keep it the same, the more predictable it's going to be. And as I've noticed, my cue action can be a little bit different because my wrist comes through at a different angle from time to time. I don't want to change this, I just want to keep it in the same position every single time. Obviously, I need to find a position that works, but I just want to keep this consistent position. So my goal for the season is just to try to find a position that works, that felt fairly good, and keep it consistent, as well as watching the cue ball after it struck the object ball to make sure I don't unintentionally straighten up the shots, as well as completing the shot to make sure that I'm pushing the cue through all the way and getting the correct position by generating enough spin and power to make sure my bridge hand stays in the same place and I'm not moving it all over the place. When I initially get down on the shot, I need to make sure for the first couple of seconds I'm making sure I'm looking at the cue ball and I'm striking it in the middle, and then move up to the object ball and see if I'm hitting that in the correct place. And then, as I've just said, to try and keep my wrist in the right position after I've struck the ball. Well, there you go. At least I managed to remember all of it. And if you're planning to set yourself your own goals for the upcoming year, that's a good decision. Just remember to keep those goals simple and achievable and focus them around keeping your game predictable. And of course, to finally get the place decorated with a new cloth for the table. In fact, I don't even care if the technical stuff doesn't work. We're getting this done. Although I'm not sure on a time frame, but if you want to see the goals I set for myself last season and how well I actually managed to achieve them, then have a look at these two videos. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.